Eagles Entertainment.
The journey to the draft is driven by AAA. AAA Roadside is their strong side. Make AAA a part of your game day today. AAA, go ahead.
With the 21st pick in the NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select.
You're listening to the Journey to the Draft podcast.
Welcome to the Journey to the Draft podcast driven by AAA. I'm your host, Fran Duffy. The first day of drills at the NFL Scouting Combine, it's in the books. It's over. Thursday night has come and gone. Wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends all took the field at Lucas Oil Stadium. We're going to break it all down here on the show. Chris McPherson's going to join me. We're going to break it all down in Pick 6, in Draft Buzz. But at the very top of the show, we're going to be joined by a special guest, a guy who's been on the show a number of times, and that's Reese's Senior Bowl Executive Director Jim Nagy, former NFL scout. We're going to get into kind of what's going on behind the scenes here and how the lead up to that point, because scouts, they do so much background work on all of these players. So we're going to get into a little bit of that with Jim and what goes into all of that process leading into these formal and informal interviews that happen here in Indianapolis. Also has a little bit of a great nugget, actually, from a certain Eagles player that you may have heard of. So we'll get into that at the end of the interview. After that, Pick 6, 6 wide receivers. They're now the talk of the town after what they did on the turf at Lucas Oil Stadium. Draft Buzz, we'll go through all the other players that stood out. Really heavy breakdown there, and then we'll wrap it up in our draft mailbag. But before we get started here with the show, just a quick reminder, if you haven't had a chance yet, visit PhiladelphiaEagles.com/journey survey. Go fill out a quick little 4 to 5 minute survey, all content-based. Again, I've talked about it over the last couple of episodes. It's all geared towards trying to make this show better for you guys at home. So whether you listen year-round, if you only listen during draft season right now, whenever you listen, really, really helps us if you go and fill out that survey. Again, PhiladelphiaEagles.com/journey survey. You can do it right on your phone as well, right on the podcast. You can just go into the description. The link is there to the survey. You can go to my Twitter page as well, at FDuffy3. All right. Let's get this show going. It's time for the very top. It's Mr. Relevant.
It's time for Mr. Relevant.
Well, excited to welcome back to the Journey to the Draft podcast driven by AAA. Reese's Senior Bowl Executive Director, Jim Nagy. Jim, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, Fran, thanks for having me on. Finally meeting face to face.
Yeah, no question.
This is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, and we talk a lot about how really the most important parts of this whole thing are the medicals and the interviews and the interview process. We did some access pieces in the past, like getting a look inside Carson Wentz's interview here with the Eagles before he was drafted second overall. We just don't get a lot of insight into it. So I wanted to ask you, as a former scout, before we get into the interview portion, the GMs, the head coach, the decision makers, they go into that room. They know a lot of the answers to some of the questions they ask, right? And that's all because of the background that the area scout does. So I almost want to let's start back to the spring of the previous year. What does the area scout do to acquire all of that background information?
It really depends on the team and where you kind of start your cycle in terms of the information collection. It can start as early as pro days, which are coming up here in a couple weeks. So there's certain teams that'll send scouts out to pro days, and they'll be getting all the numbers obviously from the workouts and evaluating the workout. But then they'll stay late and spend a few more hours in the building, walking around the building, trying to gather information for next year's class. And there's a lot of value to that. It puts a lot more stress on the scout because, again, he's leaving town at 7 o'clock and he's got a 3-hour drive and he's not getting to the next city till 10 o'clock, and then he's got to type up all his stuff from that day's report. So it puts a lot more stress on him. But the interesting thing is when you hit coaches and people around the building up about players when they're their junior, spring of their junior year, they're not ready for it. You can kind of see it on their face, like they're so used to answering about that senior class that's just getting ready to finish up. When you hit them on a guy for next year, they're kind of like, oh, geez, I haven't had time to think about what that answer is supposed to be yet. And so you take all those notes, and then you go back in the fall, and it's sometimes things change. It's pretty funny. You're like, you go back in August. You're like, that's not what they said last March. The company lines changed on that guy. So, no, there's a lot of value to it, and that's why coming to the Combine is great, because you go into the schools and the scouts bust their butts all year to get that information, and then this is really the first time that you get in front of the players. And it's one thing to hear a kid's backstory about how he grew up and maybe some of the hardships he went through, but it's another to hear it from his mouth. I think that's the most impactful thing, and that's why our game, the Senior Bowl, is a great opportunity because they have more time for one. You get more time with them there than here. I mean, the schedule here is a little more regimented and there's not as much downtime. But the more time you can spend with these guys, the better. I think we've probably talked about it on your podcast. Is my experience when you miss on players, you're missing on the person.
Right.
I mean, the tape's the easier part, is to watch the tape and watch evaluate the player. But really figuring out who these players are is difficult, and there's really not a lot of time for it. I mean, you really have to have a dedicated staff that is willing to go the extra mile because, you get an all-star game exposure, you get a limited time here at Indy, and then, maybe pro day. Maybe a 30, but that's not a lot when you're talking about, being with a guy for 4 years or 5 years on that first contract, and then hopefully, a second or third contract. It's not a lot of time to get to know the person.
Jim, how have you applied those lessons learned from your time as a scout in the NFL to being the executive director of the Senior Bowl and setting the game up?
Yeah, there's a little bit of carryover, but not as much as you would expect, really. Because we don't have to. What's
Got
up,
Jalen
Jim?
Hurts here.
Good to see you, bud.
Over to say hello. Jim takes care of his guys. I was going to say he's a Senior Bowl guy. So.
But no, there's not as much carryover because, one, we don't have to be as concerned as much about the character part of it for our game. I mean, again, we don't want guys that are criminals in our game by any stretch of the imagination. But we also we almost owe it to the teams to bring some guys in with character question marks. Because they want to spend extra time with them. So, there's kind of that fine line. Do we, again, for me, making the call on these guys, anything domestic, you're not coming to Mobile.
Right.
But if it's, some positive weed tests or whatever might have you, it almost behooves us to bring them for the team. So, again, but again, when it comes back to the scouting part, I mean, what you got to do. I mean, you're evaluating the whole draft. And Phil Savage told me this before I got the job. He's like, your draft's at the end of November, man.
Right.
Like you're on a shorter time, so you don't have till the end of April.
Yep.
So you really got to hone in on these guys and make some good decisions. And that's why we start the process now. I haven't done it yet, but our 3 scouting assistants are already on the next season for next year's group. So.
So when you go back and you look at your career as an area scout, were there ever times, you don't have to mention specific players or coaches, but would there ever be a time where, look, you're counted on to be the expert on this player by the time you get here, from a background standpoint or personality standpoint, and whether it be a position coach or a cross-check scout or someone that's an upper level part of it that meets the guy for 10 minutes and they're like, oh, I love this kid. And you're like, man, this is not what's in my this is not what I have in my report at all. Remember what all the stuff that I've wrote down over the last few months.
Yeah, and that's the hard part is you go out and you work really hard at that part of it. And again, these guys are smart enough. Some of them you can get snowballed in a 10-minute exposure. And it just goes back to being a team and trusting the guys you work with. So. Because I've been in that position as an over-the-top scout where I've read the area scouts report and I went in and met the player, and I had to go back to the area scout and be like, "Are you sure? Like, is that really what they said about him? Because I didn't get that." And they're like, "Jim, trust me." I'm like, "Okay, I got you."
Right.
You all just again, that's why there has to be camaraderie in that group. That's why the culture of that scouting room and that draft room is so important. And I know Philly's done a really good job of having cohesion in that group because you get in those situations, man. We're all in the fall. You're out there by yourself. The area scout's out by himself, the over-the-top guy's out by himself, the college director, and you're all kind of independent contractors for the fall. And then you all get back together in draft meetings, and you got to hash it all out. So you really do have to have. There has to be good chemistry.
Jim, how did you hone and develop the ability to analyze players, not the football stuff, obviously, but the off-the-field stuff and the character?
I do. I think a lot of it comes with just getting older and maturing yourself, and just going through life as yourself. And I think smart GMs that can put together a staff, get guys from different backgrounds too, because you do get in a room, and again, we're all coming through this from our own lens. You're bringing your own, like everything in life, we're all bringing our own life experiences to the table, and we're seeing things through our what we've gone through in life. So again, I guess the biggest thing I learned is just to be open-minded with who these guys are and be empathetic to it and try to understand, like, some of these guys, it's really easy to be critical and point the finger and but some of these guys are products of their environment, and again, it's eye-opening when you're a scout to go into schools on a daily basis and hear about some of these backgrounds these players come from. It doesn't surprise you when you see stuff on the ticker. Like it's amazing that there's not more of it, considering where some of these guys come from. So I guess that's the biggest thing I learned over the years was just, just be empathetic to the person, and people can change, and that's why you see some organizations give guys second chances.
Right.
I believe in second chances, maybe not third and fourth chances, but at least a second chance. Because and again, the thing that gets lost, these guys are young guys now.
Sure.
Some of these guys here at the Combine are 19, 20 years old, and I mean, I know we all probably did some things at 19 and 20 that we were not proud of. So,
and we didn't have social media.
And we didn't.
Top of it.
Thank God. Thank God we didn't have smartphones back in. Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
Are there interviews that stand out to you from your career where like a guy walks into the room and you had a one preconceived notion about him, but he walks out and he's like, man, like, this guy gets it. Like he's got everything that he's going to need mentally from a background standpoint to make it in the NFL?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's got to be examples that I could give you in terms of that like where you hear something about a player at the school and then you meet him and it's different than what your preconceived notion was. I just think the best interviews are the guys that are transparent.
Yep.
The agents try to coach them up through the process so much, and what I try to tell our guys at the Senior Bowl at orientation was, I know you're being coached up, but just be yourselves. And I'll use Jalen Rieger as an example because Jalen and I are close now, and we drafted him in Seattle when I was there, and he's one of my favorite players I ever scouted, and I love the guy. But he had some missteps when he first got to Alabama out of junior college.
That's right, yep.
And and some of them were known publicly.
Yep.
And so we brought him in the room. It was at the Senior Bowl, and we bring him in. I said, okay, let's just unpack some of this stuff, Jaren, and then just tell me from your perspective. And here it was, boom, out it comes. And he hit me with stuff that like I didn't even know about, and I thought I had it all tied up. And here he is, just like, nope, and this and this. I'm like, okay, and but it was real.
Yeah,
like I was meeting the real guy, and then I'm like, okay, are we done? Like, is this? He's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, okay, so let's talk some football. And when he walked out of the room, and it might have been the same draft class as Wentz, because I remember this happening twice when Wentz and Jaren were in the same situation where we had a suite. The Seahawks would get a suite, and we'd have the players come up, and all the scouts would be up there. And at one time, there might be 8 players up there. At one time, there might be 1. And when Wentz and Jaren were both up there was no other players up there. So really, the whole scouting staff kind of circled around, and it became kind of a group thing. And the area scout or the over-the-top guys were the ones conducting the interview,
right.
But everyone was there. And when Wentz walked out, we obviously had Russell Wilson already, but Wentz walked out of the room, and we looked at each other like, oh, my God, he's going to be a dude for somebody. Like
at that point, he wasn't being talked about as that guy.
I mean, he was so comfortable in his own skin, and he just was such, he had such a charisma about him. And Jaren was the same way. Jaren's edge, like Jaren had this edge to him, that when he walked out of the room, we all looked at like that guy's got to be a Seahawk. Like those guys are hard to find these days. These guys, like Jaren's a junkyard dog in a good way, and that's why he's become a leader on that Seahawk team. And you knew it when he walked out of that room that day.
Now, on the flip side, are there instances where you've been severely disappointed because you knew the answers to the test, you gave the test to the player in the interview, and he wasn't forthcoming or he wasn't completely truthful, and you said to yourself, everything points to we would want this guy on our team, but you just can't trust him.
Yeah, sure. That definitely happens. I wouldn't throw a guy under the bus and name names, but that happens. And the other thing that happens is, this is a part of the process where you can check your sources as well. You got to go back and a certain picture has been painted when you go into the school, and then you actually meet the kid, and you're like, well, that is not how he was being described at the school. So then you go back to the sources, and you go back to the school and say, listen, I spent a lot of time with this guy at the Senior Bowl or the Combine, and this is my interpretation of it. Am I reading that wrong? Did I have a bad 30 minutes with him, or because you guys kind of described him as this, and you got to hash that out a little bit because it's like conflicting information. You owe it to your GM and your owner and your head coach to go back in that room and have an answer for that. You can't go back into the draft room and say, well, they told me this and I think this, and there's this discrepancy. Well, no, figure that discrepancy out. Why did that happen? And so that's what this part of the process is all about, is really getting to the bottom of these guys.
It's no different than a guy that you expect to run 4.45 and he runs 4.6 flat, and you're like, well, what the hell? This is not what we saw on film. Just trying to go back and double check and take a look at it.
Yeah, and that's what all this stuff is.
Yeah.
So I just did an interview with a Cincinnati radio station. We're talking about Joe Burrow's hand size, which is all the craze these days. But all of these things are the Wonderlic test. I mean, all this stuff is just they're just things that make you go back and either recheck the tape or recheck a source and make sure, like the Wonderlic test. A lot of people bristle at that nowadays, but all it is. I mean, we've had. It's just a way to check it, So I can't tell you how many times we've had high Wonderlic guys that can't learn football, and vice versa. Guys that are, get a 7 on the Wonderlic, but football makes sense.
Right.
You talk to the position coach, you talk to the coordinator at the school. They're like, yeah, this guy's great on the board. We can move him around. He can learn 3 different wide receiver positions, and then your coaches get with him. Same thing. It checks out. But you got this low Wonderlic score hanging out. Well, who cares then?
Right.
It's just a way to check yourself, and that's all this stuff is, the 40 time everything. So.
I've said it earlier in the week on the show. It's only a problem if it's a problem. When it comes to all that stuff.
It comes down to going back to the tape and trusting what you see.
Sure.
Just trusting your own eyes and not worrying about all this other stuff. The Combine's a great event, and I love Jeff Foster who runs it. He does an awesome job. This is a 3-ring circus, man. This is like an 18-ring circus. He does a phenomenal job running this thing, but you can make a lot of mistakes by what what guys are doing in shorts and T-shirts.
Sure. Well, Jim, really appreciate the time here once again on the Journey to the Draft podcast, driven by AAA. Best of luck. Your first time here as a media member this week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Fran. Thanks for having me on.
Now it's time for Pick 6.
All right, C-Mac, well, before we get started here with Pick 6, let's really quickly reflect on that story from Jim Nagy. I thought that was a really cool nugget about Carson Wentz there at the end.
It's funny because there are a lot of people who probably hear that and are wondering, like, man, that's everything we thought that he would be,
right?
Which is what he's been to this point here from a leadership standpoint. He's coming from day one and has been the guy, learned a little bit behind the ropes, but was thrust into the starting lineup as a rookie, when initially the plan was to let him sit the first year, but took command of the helm, showed tremendous poise in that rookie year of 2016, going through the ups and downs, had his meteoric rise in 2017 to help the Eagles win the Super Bowl, and has worked to get himself back to that elite level and was getting there in 2019, helping the Eagles win the NFC East, rallying the team late down the stretch. And unfortunately, that hit from Jadeveon Clowney kept Eagles fans from seeing what could have been an amazing run in the postseason. So,
to me, my biggest takeaway from that was they already have Russell Wilson, and yet they're meeting with one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. And I think that kind of speaks to, we all get so excited this time of year, and all these articles get clicked on when it comes to, this player or team X met with player Y and all this. Every team meets with every player at some point in the process. In some way, shape, or form, they're going to do their due diligence. No matter the player, no matter the position, they're always going to try and meet with these guys because you never know. And so to me, like, they already have Russell Wilson. He's there. He's their franchise quarterback. But they're down in Mobile, and they're like, let's do a formal interview with one of the top quarterbacks here and just get a feel for him. And to me, I thought that was a little eye-opening, really good to be able to get that kind of a story from Jim Nagy.
Well, it's twofold. It's one, down the road, what if player X becomes a free agent, or what if you're scouting to prepare to face that player in a postseason game? You want to know what makes that person tick.
Right.
Get a little inside edge. And circling back to the story I wrote on Amina Solomon and Lee DeValerio, the two scouting assistants
Sure, it's
here.
great stuff. Make sure you go read that story if you haven't already.
Lee said, we try to meet with every player.
Right.
Okay? Every single player. So I do the eye roll like most reporters do when there's a pause in the press conference with the players. Did you meet with the Packers? Did you meet with the Bucks? How did it go? I would love a player who was like, I bombed.
Yeah.
It was terrible. So I'll get off my high horse on that note right there.
All right, well, let's get into what we saw here on the first day of workouts from Lucas Oil Stadium. We're going to talk through the wide receiver position, obviously the deepest position, the most talented position in this draft, according to pretty much every analyst and evaluator in the country. Let's talk about 6 players that really kind of are now the talk of the town now, C-Mac, at the wide receiver position. I'll let you kick things off. Who, to you, is getting the most buzz at this point after what we saw on Thursday night?
Ooh, let's see. So I'm going to go through my list, and I will start. Okay, I will say the one who's the most. We were kind of debating how to handle pick 6, of how to exactly phrase it.
Yes.
Okay. Because the player I'm going to bring up first here, we were talking about, initially we were kicking around the idea of who helped his stock the most.
Right.
And you could debate this one, but Henry Ruggs is certainly the story of night 1 of the combine workouts because of his blazing fast 40 time, okay? Clocking in, I think, officially 4.27 is the final one. It was, I think, 4.28 unofficial, but the final one is 4.27, just shy of John Ross's 4.22, but so effortless, so smooth, so fluid. And when you watch him run, you even see, like, not quite the cleanest start, and you're like, he still finishes below a 4.3. And you see that when you watch the highlights, you watch the film, you see that explosiveness on the field. So that gets into the point where he pulled up with an injury. He had an injured quad. He was being iced the rest of the time. So he didn't partake in any of the position drills.
Yep.
So he basically did his 40 and was like,
He had the jump, so he jumped through the gym as well.
and
42
he
inches in the vert,
explosive jumps.
11 foot in the just about 11 feet in the broad.
So he's, but once he hit the 4.27, quad's a little sore. Indy, I've done what I need to do.
I don't think that I really don't think that he did that because he's known as like a super competitive guy. My guess is he did actually tweak the quad.
No. I was not trying to make it sound like that he did, but the fact that once he was injured, it's like if I can't play.
Well, yeah.
So no, I was not trying to insinuate.
No,
that.
he's not. You're not. If you get any kind of tweak in that situation, you're not pushing it because
Of
now
course.
you don't want
Of
that to turn
course.
into something more serious.
Yes.
To me, it was great. It's great. We knew though that Henry Ruggs was a 4.2 guy. We knew this going in. Like to me, this wasn't like this wasn't breaking news to me. This was what we had expected. I was really looking forward to seeing him go through position drills because and he was a deep ball threat. We saw him used that way at Alabama. I would have loved to see multiple occasions, multiple reps of him having to track the ball over the shoulder, accurate, inaccurate, short, long, inside, outside. Would have loved to see him put into some stressful situations down the field where he had to track the football like we got to see from some of these other guys. That would have been really nice to see in person. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that because of the injury. So I don't know that walking away from the workout, you say, man, he really helped his stock. Because I think right now it's Henry Ruggs is exactly who we thought he was going into it. We knew Henry Ruggs was going to be at worst 4.31, 4.32, right? If he was any worse than that, that would have been breaking news. To me, I don't know that he's helped himself with what he did on Thursday, but he still obviously is going to be it's going to be a big discussion point.
It's a big story to me, and Eagles fans are wondering, with that speed, could he possibly last till 21? Okay, I think it's one thing to see it on tape. It's one thing to believe that he's going to be timed in that range, but when he actually pulls it off in prime time, first time that the combine workouts are being televised, in prime time to pull it off, and they had the fastest guys doing the 40 right in that window where you want the nation watching, okay? And he showed up, and he put up a big time. Didn't set the record, but certainly contested it. And it's still, to me, it's one thing to say and to predict that he's going to be a 4.2 guy, but when he actually does it on the field, then it's like, whoa. To me, it puts an exclamation point on it.
Sure. I think it's obviously it's a huge, huge feat and a really impressive accomplishment. But yeah, it's it'll be an interesting discussion. I'm interested to see what the narrative is on that as we get into next week, as we get into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, leaving the combine. Are people going to be talking about it the same way? We'll see. It's going to be very, very interesting. My guy, I'm going to say, to me, the player that I think, if we're going to talk about who helped himself the most, people questioned, can Jefferson, what is his long speed? Like, what does he look like, working down the field? He goes out and he runs at 202 pounds, runs 4.43, does really well in the jumps as well. Not as well as Ruggs, but over 10 feet in the jumps, 10 and a half feet in the jumps over 37 inches in the vert. And then in drills, was everything we imagined he would be. I mean, he was outstanding, catching the football, looked sharp as a route runner, which we would expect. And they're doing routes on air, so it's not like he's trying to juke any defenders out of their shoes or anything. But I thought he looked crisp. He looked super confident. I don't know if a ball hit the ground all night with him. Really, really impressive performance there from Justin Jefferson. And again, running that 4.43, I think answered some questions for people going into this part of the process. I think you're checking that box in a positive light there for Justin Jefferson. To me, a guy who helped himself as much as anybody on Thursday night.
So crisp in route running.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing with him. I also loved, the pop. When the ball would hit his hands, you just securely would catch it each and every time. I'm trying to look here. He did the second time he went through the gauntlet was very solid. Both runs with the gauntlet were good. Did good adjusting over the shoulder catches. Did a great job tracking the football, running the go route.
Yep.
So every way, shape, and form. But like you said, he answered the biggest question that he had to here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, he had some outstanding catches at all three areas of the field, downfield, looking the ball in through his eyelids, over his shoulder, made some catches going to the ground. So Justin Jefferson, to me, answered a lot of questions on Thursday.
All right, so Fran, you've got the numbers here. You've got your database here with input. We spent some time trying to input what the league has provided from a statistical standpoint thus far. Can you read through the jump numbers for wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones?
Yeah, no, certainly a very impressive performance. He went 139 inches, which is 11.7. Yeah, 11.7. So 11 feet 7 inches in the broad jump, 44.5 in the vertical jump. Very, very good numbers there for he was a half an inch shy of the best vertical jump in the last 10 years of any receiver drafted. So certainly outstanding numbers there from a jump standpoint. He ran 4.48 as well in the 40-yard dash. So DPJ from Michigan certainly had a very impressive athletic performance.
And I will add to that, I thought he had the best position drill workout of all the receivers on the field today. So you can disagree.
More so than Justin. Wow.
I thought a cleaner workout than Justin Jefferson. Both gauntlet runs were smooth. Over-shoulder adjustment drill, made a nice job with the catch there. Showed great acceleration on the post-corner route. He had one drop on a high throw that he could have possibly brought in, but I thought from top to bottom, the go route was very, very impressive, where the quarterback, lofted the ball nicely. And some of this is due to the quarterbacks, good or bad, okay? You need a good ball from the quarterback to be able to work it, because there are times when the guy might run a nice route, and it certainly will be noted that he runs a nice route, but the ball may not be where it's supposed to be. But as we were just going through drill, I'm like, Donovan Peoples-Jones, like, the numbers are there from the timing and testing standpoint, physically. The workout numbers are just continuing to go on and be impressive, and I thought from start to finish was very, very good. I at the end of the night, I said, trying to look at all the players who participate in these drills and the position workouts, and I thought from the wide receiver standpoint, DPJ was the top one.
To me, the guy that blew me away with his position workout, and I had not studied this player, so didn't have any preconceived notions coming in. The athletic tests weren't great. The shuttles were not very good at all. The jumps were just okay. The 40 he ran 4.45 at 6'2", just under 200 pounds. Isaiah Colter from Rhode Island. His position workout was outstanding. He dropped one pass. It was a final catch on a gauntlet, one of the gauntlet reps. Did not let a ball hit the ground throughout the rest of the workout. Showed excellent body control, really confident hands, really strong hands, caught everything thrown his way. I really, really liked what I saw from Isaiah Colter, especially considering I hadn't studied him. Every once in a while, you come to this and you kind of watch these guys go through the position workout and you say, man, like, this guy just looks the part. He looks really good. And I thought Isaiah Colter from Rhode Island really, really stood out to me. We saw his teammate Aaron Parker down at the Shrine Bowl. Isaiah Colter, a junior who declared for the draft, again, out of URI, out of Rhode Island. You typically don't see juniors come out of a program like that, but URI putting 2 receivers into this event here in Indianapolis. And I thought Isaiah Colter was really, really good here on Thursday night.
So basically there's 2 groups, that the quarterbacks and receivers.
Right.
There's a group of quarterbacks and wide receivers who work together in one group and another group where they're paired off together. I thought for Colter, he was with the first group of quarterbacks and wide receivers to go through the drills, and I thought he was the best of that group. So, it's every time you're like checking your notes and you're like, who is this guy? And I will admit, you hear the names, and you're almost thinking like, is this route really good because of who's running it, or was it a really good route? Okay, you're trying to like not be influenced by the name. It's like just because CeeDee Lamb runs the route doesn't mean it's a good route. No, you're trying to isolate it. And with Isaiah Colter, just as he kept checking the box as you keep going through the routes, and you're like, this guy's putting in a good workout. So it's a guy you I think had a comparison to someone from last year.
That was how I felt about Tristan Hill, the defensive tackle from Central Florida, who ended up going in the second round to Dallas. I hadn't studied Tristan Hill before the combine. We go out there, you see the position workout, and you're like, man, you just see this guy move, and he's moving as well or better than most of these guys out there. And I just thought Colter, it wasn't necessarily the movement that got me. It was just the confidence at the catch point. It was certain. He was graceful in terms of how he moved. I liked his body control. I thought, to me, I was really impressed with that kid on Thursday.
So my third guy is a player we saw at the Senior Bowl.
Okay,
and he was known as a very good route runner, but he's a bigger body receiver, and you're trying to figure out, from an athletic standpoint, a movement standpoint, can any of these big body receivers separate themselves? And I thought Michael Pittman from USC did a very good job of doing that today. Just from the position drills themselves, checked off to every box, adjusted well, catching the ball over the shoulder. Both of his runs in the gauntlet were clean. Every route was run quite nice. His in routes I thought were very sharp, especially as being such a bigger receiver. Had a couple low throws on the out routes when he was lined up on the right side, but that was more on the quarterback. But did a great job attacking the ball on the fade route. Caught the ball deep down the field on the go routes. Just across the board was just very, very consistent from start to finish, and put up good enough numbers in the timing and testing drills that should get him more consideration moving forward. So the third guy who I thought really not just helped his case, but really, I think, create some buzz for himself here to try to separate himself from that second group of receivers, I guess you would say, it was Michael Pittman.
Yeah, of the guys that are, over 210, 215, he definitely, to me, had the best overall athletic workout. And, yeah, he caught everything thrown his way on Thursday night. I'm going to go with a guy that I've talked a lot about him going back to the summer, and that's Devin Duvernay, the wide receiver from Texas. I thought of all the receivers tonight, he was the best going through the gauntlet drill. Really confident, executed all the points of the drill exactly how you would want them. Good pacing, held the line well, confident at the catch point, caught everything away from his body, finished well. You saw urgency there. I thought Devin Duvernay looked really, really good. And then he runs 4.39. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but I had high expectations for him coming into the week, higher than I think some people did. He goes out and he has a good round of tests overall. The 3-cone, I think he would have liked it to be a little bit better, but everything else looked strong. Duvernay, I thought, had a really good workout in the position drills, and then running the 4.39, showing off some of that long speed, some of that track speed, I thought showed up well as well.
You've kept referring to his track background, but I definitely agree with the gauntlet. I remember going through his group, and it was like, I thought Duvernay was the best one, and you were like, yeah. So I certainly agree with his performance. I thought he as well. did a great job of generating some buzz for himself and making a little money in the process.
Yeah, so those are the 6 guys at wide receiver that we felt really are kind of the talk of the town after what they did on Thursday night. Now, let's kind of put a ribbon on everything else that we saw from Lucas Oil Stadium. It's time for Draft Buzz.
Now it's time for Draft Buzz.
All right, C-Mac, so we'll go kind of position by position here, and I thought a good way to kind of structure the conversation was to refer back to some of the categories I hit on in the positional cheat sheets. Starting at wide receiver, so we'll kind of put a ribbon on that conversation. Okay. We'll hit on a few categories from each position, and some of the players that I talked about in those pieces, and then some of the other guys that really stood out that we feel we really, really need to talk about to kind of close the book on Thursday. And first off, my workout warrior was Henry Ruggs. We talked about him earlier, so we don't need to dive too deep. I thought he showed up well in the 3 drills that he did. So I thought that I feel pretty good about that decision with Henry Ruggs. My off-the-radar pick was Tyree Cleveland, the wide receiver from Florida. I'll tell you what, he had a solid day. I don't think that he went as explosive as I maybe thought. He went 4.46 in the 40. Jumped over 10 feet in the broad. He went over 39. He went 39.5 inches in the vert. So he jumped out of the gym as well. But Tyree Cleveland, I thought, had a solid day in the workout. And really, as a receiver, I thought he did some good things too, C-Mac.
I liked post corner route. I thought did a very good job with that. The deep in route looked very clean running that as well. Did a great job on out route, keeping himself staying in bounds. I've
got one drop on the night, and it was in the gauntlet.
In the gauntlet, I was going to bring up outside of that. He was another one who, as you go down, especially when you're looking at those deep routes, that was very, very smooth, very clean throughout the course of the night. So that's another player who I'm don't really know a lot about, but definitely helped his cause here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, he was the guy that I was glad I was able to get him in there as the off-the-radar pick. My stopwatch shocker was Duvernay. We just talked about him in the last segment. I thought that he followed through, so I feel pretty good about these 3 picks here, C-Mac, for that one. My will kill the drills. I went with Justin Jefferson. We hit on him in the previous segment. I thought he was one of the best position workouts on Thursday night. So felt pretty good about what I did for the wide receiver cheat sheet. Again, we'll be doing those every single day that there are workouts. So Friday morning, we'll have the offensive line and running backs. If you haven't already read them, go on to PhiladelphiaEagles.com, the Eagles mobile app. They will be up by the time you are listening to this podcast, and you can get ready for Friday night's action at Lucas Oil Stadium. All right, let's get to some of the other guys, C-Mac, that stood out. We don't need to spend as much time as we did on the last guys in Pick 6, but I know one guy that we really need to hit on was Denzel Mims, the wide receiver from Baylor. Had a really, really good workout overall. When you look at the numbers for Denzel Mims, I mean, at 6'3", 212 pounds, 207 pounds rather. I mean, this guy's got long arms. He went 6'6" in the 3-cone, which is crazy impressive for a guy that big. He jumped 131 inches in the broad, which is a great number. 38.5 in the vert. He ran 4.38 in the 40. So you're talking about really good numbers from a raw standpoint. That's not even counting his size. So Denzel Mims, I thought from an athletic standpoint, did a lot of good things. I thought the positional workout was fine. It wasn't special. It wasn't as good as some of these other guys. I thought there were a little bit more drops. He looked a little leggy, I thought, at the top of routes at times, working in the middle of the field. But overall, I thought Mims had a strong workout.
Strong hands. The gauntlet, he would grab the ball and chuck it with authority. Before moving on to the next catch. Not the best overall, but when you bring in the size element, he is someone who's really helped himself, generated some momentum starting with the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama. Really had some flash plays down there. I think got on everyone's radar. And then you factor in the timing and testing drills, compare with the size, the fact that he's done some stuff on the field now, in an even level of competition, definitely has helped his stock throughout the draft process.
He was asked at his press conference on, what was that now? Was that Tuesday? Tuesday.
Yes.
He was asked at his press conference that what sets you apart from the other receivers here. He said it was his blocking and contested catches. You're talking about a big physical guy that enjoys those kind of physical situations. So Denzel Mims, a guy that I thought had a really, really good night on Thursday night. Let's get to another guy, Brandon Ayuk.
Yep.
I think that a lot of fans were very interested to see how Brandon Ayuk would do. I thought he had a really good positional workout. Overall, I thought he did well. Another guy jumped out of the gym, 128 inches in the broad, really good number, 40 inches in the vert, outstanding number. So I think when you look at what he was able to do from an explosive standpoint, he kind of showed off that in the jumps. And then, 4.5 in the 40, not super, super impressive. Excited to see what the 10-yard split is there. My guess is the 10 is going to look really good because that typically correlates to those jumps. So Brandon Ayuk showing off some explosiveness in a short area. Remember, this is a guy that can be a movement player, great after the catch, outstanding return man as well over the course of his career at Arizona State.
4.5 is fast enough.
No question.
That's plenty fast
to
get the job done. I actually, in my notes on his post corner route during the positional drills, gave it the chef's kiss. It was such beautiful the way he set it up. And again, of course, it's routes on air, but you want to see how clean he is. And some receivers, they'll try to look for the football way too quickly. He gives himself some time to sell the route. Then he's looking for the football. He has the tracking ability to bring it in. The gauntlet, there were a couple low throws, and he was able to pluck them with ease. So overall, certainly agree that Brandon Ayuk is someone who's generated some buzz here in Indy.
Yeah, that post-corner route I wrote down was one of the best catches of the night. He did an outstanding job on that one. Next guy we're going to hit on, John Hightower. I was impressed with Hightower, C-Mac. One of the questions people had about him were his hands, and he does have some drops. We saw him in person down at the Shrine Bowl, and he had his share of drops throughout the course of the week. But I think, if memory serves, I think he only put one or two balls on the ground over the course of the entire workout on Thursday night, and he showed off that speed. He went 4.43 in the 40-yard dash. We knew that he had some speed, so that's not what really stands out to me. To me, it was more the positional workout, seeing what he was able to do. I thought he looked confident at the catch point. Couple of drops, but overall, I thought he looked good catching the football.
In the gauntlet, a couple of throws were high. He was able to bring them in and be able to continue running smoothly and staying on point. You definitely can see he's got not quite the top-level speed that I think we were possibly expecting because he was known as a speed guy. We saw him at the Shrine Bowl, and the one element that he brings to the table is his speed. So certainly not Henry Ruggs level speed, but still plenty quick, plenty fast. And he definitely could be utilized as a deep weapon at the next level.
Jalen Rieger. Okay, another guy that I think people were expecting to time really well in the 40-yard dash. Didn't run as well. We didn't see that same top-end speed that I think a lot of people were hoping for. I'll tell you what, man, outstanding positional workout. Another guy that looked really, really impressive at the catch point. One drop, came in the gauntlet drill early, didn't drop another ball after that. Had some outstanding catches down the field, all three areas of the field, really. He had one where he had to spin in the air in the quick game. He pulled in a couple of throws that were very high and had to pull them in. The quarterback play in the second group was not as strong as the first group, so those guys had to work for the football a little bit more, and I thought Jalen Rieger showed some really nice hands, had a really impressive high point to close out the drill or to close out his night in the fade route late in the workout. But overall, Jalen Rieger, I thought looked really good. He was another guy, crazy jump numbers as well. 138 inches in the broad, 42 inches in the vert. Both are outstanding numbers and kind of showing off that explosiveness that he's got in a short area.
The post corner was lined up on the right side, made a great sliding catch.
Yep.
The fade, you mentioned the fade catch. He one-handed the ball there with authority. Also, just a well-built kid on top of it.
He's 206, and he is. I turned to you at one point. I said, he is yoked up. He really looks the part. This kid, really impressive from a physical standpoint. So Jalen Rieger is a guy really excited about moving forward.
Real quick on Rieger, you were going through PFF, and there was a certain stat.
Yeah, they posted. Mike Renner from PFF posted. Or no, it was Graham Barfield. Graham Barfield posted from NFL.com, used PFF data and posted completion. I think it was percentage of accurate passes thrown, for in terms of their targets. So Jalen Rieger, of all the top receivers, had the fewest amount of accurate passes thrown to him over the course of the season. I think it was like 31%.
31%,
or something
yep.
like that. So, we've talked a lot about how the quarterback play wasn't that great this year, and I thought that kind of spoke to that. So,
Certainly.
the stats always have the ability to tell a story. One guy, if we're talking stats, I mean, this guy was extremely productive. I thought he had a good positional workout as well. James Prochet from SMU. The athletic workout was not great. The shuttles were very poor, to be frank. But I think when you look at Prochet,
and he didn't run the 40.
He didn't run the 40, so and he chose not to run from that standpoint. But I think when you look at Prochet, the positional workout was good. This is a guy that if we're going to talk about trust the tape. Trust the tape on James Prochet. This is a guy that I think transitions well to the slot at the next level.
He does a great job of adjusting, especially over the shoulder. Thought he did a great job from that aspect.
He made some outstanding catches today. I mean, like looking at it through, you say through your eyelids where the ball's coming in, over the top of your head, and you're able to kind of look it in. Willie Mays style. He was able to do that a couple of times. A couple of catches that made you kind of heard the buzz throughout this, coming through. In terms of everybody being impressed with what they saw.
And his cuts can be so sharp. He actually lost his shoe on one of them during one of the drills there, or one of the routes, I should say. So we saw him at the Senior Bowl. You knew the route running ability. Definitely came through in the positional drills here today in Indy.
Real quickly, CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Judy, both guys I thought checked the box, right? Both
Certainly.
Positional workouts were really, really good. Sharp cuts from Jerry Judy, really good catches from CeeDee Lamb. You saw some improved route running from CeeDee Lamb as well. Only a drop or two from Jerry Judy. That was a question some people had where, how great are his hands? He does have some focus drops every once in a while. I thought both guys checked the box. The testing was fine as well. So I think when you look at both guys, nothing to worry about here. Let's move along to the next stage of the pre-draft process for both of those guys. I'll tell you what, one guy I was impressed with, and he didn't test super great, but the positional workout I thought was really impressive. Kalijah Lipscomb, the wide receiver from Vanderbilt, I thought looked really, really good. He had a good gauntlet run. Caught the ball very, very well. Showed some snap at the top of routes as well. So Kalijah Lipscomb was the guy I thought had a really solid night.
Who was his position coach?
It would be Aaron Morehead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
and where does Aaron Morehead work now?
He does work for the Eagles. And I actually caught up with Kalijah and asked him about Aaron Morehead earlier this week on Tuesday. And he said, super energetic guy, really, really excited for him. He's worked with him over the last couple of years and really helped him kind of hone in on his craft and get better as a receiver. So potentially I'll write a little blurb about that moving down the line here. But Lipscomb, really, really impressive player. I thought that he had a nice job. He did a nice job on Thursday night. A couple more guys here. Benjamin Victor, we saw at the Shrine Bowl.
Yep.
Big kid from Ohio State. Caught the ball.
Lanky kid.
Yeah,
Real
big
tall,
lanky kid. Really tall, lanky. Caught the ball really, really well. I thought he had a good week down in St. Pete at the Shrine Bowl, and to me, was able to follow that up with a strong night on Thursday, catching the football in all areas of the field.
Running the post corner, thought he did a great job of adjusting and using his eyes to sell the route as well. Trying to go through some of my notes here. Did a great job catching underneath ball on another post corner. So over the shoulder adjustments were great. Clean both times through the gauntlet. So certainly nice. Another program that puts out some well-coached receivers.
Yeah.
There at Ohio State. So
No question.
Not a shock of the next one coming through the pipeline here.
Yep, absolutely. And then the last guy we're going to hit on, Chase Claypool. Look at his size. Everyone's like, is he a tight end? He should move to tight end. What is this guy doing? How come he's not a tight end? Why isn't he a tight end? He comes in at 230 pounds. What's he do? He comes out at 6'4", 238 pounds, runs 4.42, and jumps out of the gym 40.5 inches on the vert, 126, 10 and a half feet in the broad jump. Chase Claypool, look, I thought that through the workout, it started real high, was a really good start. Tempered off a little bit. I thought he lost some juice towards the back end, and he actually didn't finish the workout. We're not sure what that injury was, but didn't finish the workout. But overall, I thought we saw some really good things from Claypool, and the athleticism, at least from a linear standpoint, straight line, I thought that he did some good things.
At that size.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing there, that size, that he's moving like that. And at Notre Dame, he was the go-to option there in that offense. So certainly he knows how to be the possession type receiver. So I think you mentioned he has a special teams background to him. So certainly
he cemented himself as a middle to early day 3 draft pick because he'll at his floor, fourth receiver, special teamer.
There you go.
Yeah. I think he set himself up very well there. All right. Let's go to tight end. We're talking about should Chase Claypool be a tight end? Let's go to the tight ends. Real quickly, we'll go through some of those things from the tight end cheat sheet. My workout warrior was Hunter Bryant, the tight end from Washington. Expected some big things from him. It wasn't as good as what we were hoping for. It was okay. It was a solid workout. He went 4.74 in the 40. That's below average. 4.46 in the short shuttle, below average. The jumps below average. The 3-cone was above average, a 7.08. When you look at, and when I say that above average, below average, good, bad, that's compared to tight ends drafted over the last decade. Hunter Bryant, only a 1-year starter for Chris Peterson out there at Washington. He's on the shorter side at 6'2 1/4, only 32-inch long arms. But this is a guy I think can find a role at the next level. I did think he would test a little bit better than he did, but overall, I thought he had a good positional workout. He was one of the guys at the tight end spot that I thought did a really nice job catching the football, running routes, doing things in the positional side of the
Agree. I thought he was very consistent from a catching standpoint during the position drills. I would say I'd probably put him as top 3, top 4 of the tight ends from the positional drill standpoint today. So I know you were focusing more on the workout warrior aspect of it, but I still think Hunter Bryant came in here in Indianapolis and helped his cause.
I ranked him as my 3rd positional workout. I thought Harrison Bryant, this kid from FAU, had the best positional workout, and Adam Troutman. I thought I had number 2. We'll talk about those guys here in a second. The second guy I had for my off the radar, a personal favorite of yours, Stefan Sullivan, who has the longest arms and the longest wingspan of any tight end, if he were to get drafted, of any tight end drafted in the last 10 years. Really, really interesting build. A 1-year starter at wide receiver. Has been a long-time contributor, again, at wide receiver for LSU, making that move to the tight end position. What did you think of Sullivan overall? I thought that the workout itself, he ran 4.66, which is a solid number. He jumped pretty well. Shuttles were very, very bad. So that's something that he'll look to improve on in his pro day.
Straight line explosive.
Yes, that's what
very,
he's got.
Very explosive. You can see some traits to work with. I thought the position drills were quite honestly up and down.
I think that's fair.
A little inconsistent there. But one, you definitely can see the explosion. You can see the ability to get deep down the field. Definitely, it's intriguing because it typically wasn't an offense that featured the tight end, and he's sort of the hybrid wide receiver tight end a whole lot. So not a ton of production coming from LSU, but nonetheless, there are certainly some traits that can be worked with.
So my stopwatch shocker for the tight end spot, I went back and forth on this, CMAC, and I ended up landing on Bryson Hopkins because I thought that he was going to test pretty well, and he did. Of the tight ends, I thought he was a guy that, again, it wasn't a great group overall from a testing standpoint. He had a solid day. He had 4.66 in the 40, above average, 4.28 in the short shuttle, above average. The jumps were above average. So he had a solid workout overall. The guy that I almost put in was the guy who lit it up before he got hurt, and that's Albert Okwuegbunam from Missouri, a guy I've been on for a couple of years now, led the country in touchdowns for tight ends as a redshirt freshman. So I watched him very early on. I thought that there were a lot of similarities to Zach Ertz from the early stages of his career with some of the guys that he was paired with, an athletic guy. Why didn't I put him there? I don't know, CMAC. I don't know why I didn't put him there. But he had a great workout before the injury. He went 4.49.
The 40 time is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean
just
that's
silly.
I mean that's out there. That's what you're looking for in terms of a guy that can get down the seam. So especially again, you factor in his size, 6'5.5", just under 260 pounds, over 34-inch long arms. This is a high school receiver, former basketball player, does a lot of good things for you in the passing game. So Albert Okwuegbunam did some really good things on the field. The injury was unfortunate. Would have liked to see him get through the rest of the workout. Would have liked to see him go through position drills as well. But to me, if you're talking about who are the tight ends that are going to have buzz coming out of Indianapolis, Okwuegbunam is going to be one of those guys.
I thought he also looked the part. Just when the tight ends were stretching, warming up, getting ready for the drills, I was like, which one's number 12? And I'm like, Okwuegbunam. And I'm like, Yep, there you go. That
Yep.
certainly looks the part. So chiseled and the whole nine. So, and then the blazing fast 40 on top of it.
My will kill the drills was Harrison Bryant, the tight end from FAU. I thought he had the best overall position workout, so I feel like I aced that one. Overall, I thought he was one of the better ones on blocking the sled. Ran good routes, caught the ball well. I think he only let one ball hit the ground the entire afternoon. So I think overall, Harrison Bryant, really, really strong night overall from the tight end from FAU, the John Mackey Award winner.
Between he and Adam Troutman were for the positional
Troutman was
drill.
outstanding too. Yep.
Yeah, it's really between those two for it right there. So I thought Bryant showed very, very strong hands in the gauntlet. Thought he did a great job tracking the ball over the shoulder, attacked the fade route, at the end of the positional drills there. So overall, very strong. I think there was actually he had one drop in the gauntlet, but did a great job of bouncing back and finishing that strong, which, as you wrote in the wide receiver cheat sheet, that you want to see how do they rebound.
How do you rebound? You don't because we saw it happen to a few people on Thursday.
Certainly did, yes.
An early drop, an early misstep. Everything kind of snowballs from there, and you end up with 3 or 4 drops on the drill. You don't want that to happen. I thought a number of these guys had an early drop. Might have been on one of the first couple throws before they got into the drill. Might have been one of the first ones they got once they started on the straight line. But guys were able to recover, and I thought certainly Bryant was able to do that. I thought Troutman was really good. You mentioned him. Probably the best in terms of the sled, attacking the sled. That was my drill that I like to focus on in that article, in the cheat sheet, and I thought Troutman looked really good there. And overall, just a really strong positional workout. And again, this is a player, check the box, right? He had a great Senior Bowl week, check that box, was productive throughout the course of his career, dominant player at the FCS level. Troutman, overall, another really good performance.
A number of the Titans struggled with the block explosion.
They did. A couple of them did, yep.
Because you noted that it was the first time they used an actual sled.
Usually it's with a guy holding the bag.
So, but a lot of guys were getting too high very early, twisting it to the side, not going straight down, staying low. I thought Troutman was one of the guys who was able to stay low and attacked it real well.
Yep, and then overall as well, let's mention Cole Kmet. I thought Cole Kmet, not special in any given way.
It wasn't. It was just
rock solid across the board. A rock solid across the board. And I think that kind of speaks to Kmet. I don't think that Kmet, when you watch him on film, is dynamic in any way. But I think when you look at him, it's like, good blocker, check. Good receiver, good pass catcher, good route runner, does everything well, nothing great. And I think that's when you look at when you get a guy like Cole Kmet, the junior from Notre Dame.
Just clean across the board. So, good numbers both in the timing drills, did well in the position drills. Again, you had him as the top of the heap.
I did.
Coming into this, so I don't think he did anything to.
And again, my focus on that was who most in the media had as the guy that was in mock draft.
So don't portray as your ranking. It's the consensus when you're reading the mock drafts, the big boards and the like.
Yes. So that's it for the tight ends. Real quick, we hit on quarterbacks. I'm going to be honest. We spent very little time staring at the quarterbacks because we're focusing on the receivers. There were some things that the quarterbacks did off by themselves. So I did watch some of those. I'll tell you what. I thought this guy was my workout warrior. Matched it, and he did everything, and he looked really good at doing it, which we expected. Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma, athletically, everything was there. Did great from an athletic testing standpoint.
I would actually even say threw the ball a little better.
He threw the ball better than he did in Mobile.
Yeah,
I agree. I would 100% agree. The ball came out well. Didn't die on the back end. Good zip coming out of his hand. Accurate over the course of the day. From the throws that I saw, I didn't watch every single throw that came out of his hand, but overall, I thought Jalen Hurts, solid day overall.
And he also crashed our podcast interview earlier
in the show.
Jim Nagy.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing us back to that. Off the radar, I went with Steven Montez, the quarterback from Colorado, who's thrown a bunch of passes to Laviska Shenault over the course of his career. I thought
who got hurt today, by the way. So
yes.
I know that's someone who a lot of people were interested in. There was all the talk about Shenault had a pre-workout injury or for the season, I really should say, that he had been dealing with. Whether that was a reason that he had to stop early, it's uncertain. But shame we couldn't see Shenault go through the full workout.
Yeah, no question. Montez, I thought, from an athletic standpoint, Did some nice things. You look at the jumps were pretty good. He showed off some of that athleticism on Thursday night. Stopwatch shocker, Justin Herbert posted outstanding athletic workouts or athletic numbers. Again, the reason why I put him in there was I think people kind of slept on his athleticism, at least going into the midway point of the season, everything up to that point. Down the stretch, did a lot of things with his legs, and I think most college football fans and NFL draft fans got to see that athleticism and what he can do with the ball in his hands. But if you're a casual fan, you may not have been aware of how athletic this kid is, and he did some really good things from that standpoint. And then my will kill the drills. I went with Jordan Love, and I thought he threw the ball very well on Thursday night. Justin Herbert threw the ball very well on Thursday. We didn't see Joe Burrow, but I thought that overall the guys that threw the top guys, I thought overall had good performances, again, from what I saw. The ball flew out of Jacob Eason's hand a number of times. So overall, the biggest names seemed to me, from the limited exposure, I thought it fared pretty well.
I thought Lewerke from Michigan State, also a very strong arm.
There you go.
That was the other one that stood out from seeing his arm live.
I like it.
Up close for the first time.
All right, well, let's wrap this show up here. That's what we saw from Thursday night. Outstanding stuff from the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the tight ends. But let's put a ribbon on this show. It's time for Draft Mailbag.
Now it's time to hear from you, the fans, in the Draft Mailbag.
All right, so it's just a final reminder. Wherever you listen, leave us a rating, leave us a comment. If you leave us a question, if you leave us a mock draft, we'll cover it here on the show, and that's what we're going to do here. Sean Wolford, longtime listener, left a 5-star review. Saying,
is this like his 5th mock draft that he's left for us?
No, I don't think
I'm
so.
I'm joking, Sean.
Yeah, so Sean said he loves the podcast. He has trouble following along during the football season with the Eagles playing, but from the moment Shrine Bowl week starts, he is glued into the show, trying to figure out which prospects work for the Eagles, who's rising up boards, who to stay away from. Loves everything about it. He's got a mock draft that he did on firstpick.com. At the top of the draft, Henry Ruggs, player we talked about earlier in the show.
Indeed. And the big question is going to be with the way that not just the Eagles, every team needs speed.
Yep.
Every team's looking for speed.
I'm pretty sure every head coach that spoke on Tuesday talked about how much they would love to add speed.
Certainly. So it's going to be interesting to see that, before the combine, really you were starting to see Ruggs go just before the Eagles pick at 21. It'll be interesting to see if that changes. I don't know if enough has changed to really shake up the hierarchy there at wide receiver, because you talked about CeeDee Lamb's workout, Jared Judy's workouts were both solid.
We didn't say it when we talked about Judy and Lamb. Lamb running 4.5, 4.51, whatever it was, good number for him.
Exactly.
That was a win for CeeDee Lamb.
So that's what I mean. So it goes back to your point where, yes, Ruggs is fast. We knew he was fast. He proved it once again. I still think it's one thing to hear that he's fast and then to see it, and for him to perform that number. You just think that some team's going to get so enamored by that 4.27 that it's like they're going to have it. Where did John Ross go? I know
9th overall.
It's not 4.22, but it's right there basically. So
his second-round pick, Noah Igbenogany, we're going to see him on Sunday afternoon. And I think he is going to test very, very well. Very athletic corner, explosive athlete, very physical, very competitive. Just a little bit raw. He's only been playing corner for a couple of years, but Igbenogany, a guy that I think is going to test really well on Sunday. We'll get a chance to see him go through drills. Third-round pick, his first of 2, Jordan Brooks, the linebacker from Texas Tech. C-Mac, you've not been able to see him live. I haven't seen him live either, but very productive player over the last couple of years who has gotten a little bit of buzz. So excited to see how he tests on Saturday. Kyle Duggar, the safety from Lenore-Rhyne.
Oh, there you go.
His third-round pick. I think he's another guy who's going to test really well, especially considering his size. Big hitter, coverage safety as well, so does a lot of different things for you from the safety spot. 3 fourth-round picks here, C-Mac.
Okay.
Cesar Ruiz, the center from Michigan,
Wow.
good player. My guess is, and I know he's going off the board from firstpick.com.
Of course.
My guess is Cesar Ruiz is going earlier than the fourth round. But KJ Hill, the wide receiver from Ohio State, there as well, and then Levante Taylor, the third fourth round pick. He is a corner from Florida State who played some safety this year, played some nickel, undersized, but crazy athlete. It's a shame he's not here because I think he would be one of the guys that would test really well. But yeah, a guy that's not at the combine here in the fourth round, which I mean that happens every year.
Certainly.
So that's nothing to stick your nose up to. Fifth round pick Nick Coe, the edge rusher from Auburn. very interesting player because he's got, with his body, I mean, he's been up in the 270s. He's been in the, I think he came in at like 263. He's got the ability, I think, to get into the 280s and even to the 290. I mean, he's just a big-bodied kid. Interesting player from a physical standpoint. Only started one game this year. We kind of got relegated back more to a rotational role. Was a starter the previous year, so you kind of have to figure that out. But an interesting player with upside for sure. Another fifth-round pick, J.J. Taylor from Arizona. Explosive athlete, twitched-up kid. Very small at the running back spot for sure, but he does a lot of different things for you in the passing game. And then another player I've not studied. I don't know much about Wisconsin defensive tackle Isaiah Loudermilk.
Wow, okay.
I got nothing on that one, but overall, interesting group there, Sean. Good stuff overall.
I think kind of hits on the positions that most fans want to see the team touch on throughout the draft process there. So it'll be very interesting post-combine when a lot of these rankings kind of get reassimilated, not just based on the workouts, but also because of all the rumblings you're going to hear from teams and behind the scenes
Absolutely.
out and about in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's good stuff there from Sean. And we'll be back tomorrow. C-Mac, we've got another day of workouts. We've got the offensive line and running backs on Friday night. We will be bringing you another podcast. You can check for it on Saturday morning. This one you're hopefully listening to on Friday. And we'll bring you all the action that we see from Lucas Oil Stadium on Friday. All that being said, we'll wrap this up. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. For Chris McPherson, I'm Fran Duffy. Thanks for listening to the Journey of the Draft podcast, driven by AAA. Again, rate, review, subscribe. Talk to you tomorrow.